This lesson is all about chest voice, specifically expanding chest voice range comfortably and sustainably, safely. So what exactly is chest voice? Now I'm not going to go into the science of like thyroid retinoid muscles and all that stuff because it wouldn't really serve you right now. You want to know how to use it. So think of your voice in two parts. They're really more than that, but for the sake of this video, you have the big heavy voice, like what you speak with. You can think, fly me to the moon, let me play under the stars. Let me see what life is like on Jupiter and Mars. Chest voice. Then you have head voice. How does it feel to know that I love you, babe? At least in my voice, that would be kind of pure head voice. Vocal weight. It is a thing. And this is where a lot of you are really struggling if you're not aware of it. You might not be aware of it, but this is the reason. As we go higher, we start to feel this sense of heaviness. You feel like there's an imminent threat that your throat will implode. It's like, even if you manage to sound good, there's that feeling of being kind of pulled down. And this becomes the anchor point for the singing, and it gets really bad. Round in circles I go, and you start yelling it out. A lot of you ask me, what is the difference between yelling and singing powerfully? Because I get this a lot. People will say, like, I have a friend, and when she sings, it's powerful singing, and when I try it, I'm singing the notes, but it sounds like I'm yelling. And it's because you are. When we are anchored here, you get the and when we get to anchor in the body, we can push out. So that's what we want to do. And of course we can go higher, lower, we're gonna play with all that. But for now, let's just find our healthy anchor spot, because we know that this is not the way. So I want you to touch your epigastrium. You might be like, what the hell is that? We all have a left and right pectoral muscle, or left and right breast, whatever you say, pectoral muscles, but we have a bone in between. You can hear it's hard. You might be able to hear me thumping on it. I want you to trace down that bone until you get to that first bit of flesh. So it's bone, 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 flesh, and we want to find this spot. It should feel like you can push into it. No matter how strong or hard your abs are, there should be a very distinguishable difference, easily distinguishable difference between bone and flesh. So we want that uppermost part of the abs, okay? Make sure you can find that. If you think of your rib cage doing this, whoop, it's right within that. So it's the uppermost part of the abs in the center. Please, every time I do workshops, there's always that one person who's like, yeah, I'm feeling it, This always happens without fail. If you're up here, I want you to focus. I know it can be kind of scary, like, oh, he wants me to find something, I have to do work. Yes, you can do this. We start with the bone. It's hard, it's bone, I promise you. And then up, there's stomach. That's all it is. Up one notch is bone again, but I want to be on the stomach, the highest part of my abdomen. So it's not stomach, but it's the highest part of my abdomen. So I want you to push in. Can you cough gently, almost like a voiceless cough? You should notice that it kind of, it bounces out. There's this paradoxical effect that we as singers have to have, where instead of everything coming down, we have muscles that need to go out. That's what's going to engage our diaphragm and help us to compress breath for powerful sound in any register, but for now for chest voice. This muscle also helps to facilitate chest voice specifically, but whatever. So we're just feeling it now. If you can feel it with a cough, can you feel it with a hiss, as in the letter S? Not a gentle hiss. I know I have a video where I'm like hissing gently, but this is a strong one, like a strong, forceful hiss. Very short and detached, very staccato if you know musical terms. So it's just s, 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 very quick hisses. S, s, s. Notice it's popping out. S, s, s. It's not going s, s. It's not doing that. So make sure s, 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 that is popping out. Can you feel that? If you cannot, pause the video and come back when you can. I don't recommend doing a whole lot of coughing. A little bit's not going to kill you. But I don't recommend doing a whole lot because that can irritate your vocal folds, and it's that time of year when everybody's kind of having stuff. So try to focus more on the hissing part, but you can and see if you can feel it there, okay? This is the muscle zone that we want. this is where your diaphragm connects to the abdominal wall here. Your diaphragm is 360 degrees, but this is giving us a unique opportunity to literally feel it and to see it. So we have some wonderful sensory and visual cues that we can work with to know our diaphragm is working. Why am I being so dramatic? I don't know. So let's move on. So again, if you're here, that means you can feel it with the hiss. If you cannot, you need to go back. So let's get a little fancier. We're gonna do what I call the 1, 2, 3. Not a very imaginative name. So I want 1, 2, 3, but you're gonna really think short, short, sustain. So it's gonna be s, s, s. See how it kind of lifts me up? S, s, s. And then when I stop, I power back down. So you're gonna notice that your lower belly is gonna kind of come in and up. It's gonna be kind of scooped, but your upper abdomen, this magic spot here, this place, some people literally call it the magic spot. I've heard it called the button. I've heard it called the diamond. I've heard it called the triangle. I've heard it called everything. But I just want you to feel it. I don't care what you call it. You can call it Sally. I don't care. But just press into it and feel it. But it needs to work. If you're getting that's not right. We don't want that. So we need and I mentioned the belly. This happens as a byproduct. Don't try to force this to happen. This is not the key. This is the key. You need to feel the muscle will harden and protrude forward. It will firm and protrude forward. Almost like a cartoon character's heart beating out of its chest, like, oh, it's almost that kind of feeling. So again, if you're still struggling with that, or if you just need to practice, I don't say struggling, then pause the video, and if you got it, let's move on. I know we're going really fast. The longest part is probably my explanation in the beginning. So this next part is very simple. We're going to use a Z or a Z, depending on what part of the world you're from, is what you call it. But this zzz sound is in the word zoo. Zzz. So I want you to make this sound while touching this muscle. I want you to actually touch it. Zzz. Zzz. So now we're connecting this to our vocal cords, okay? Now we're about to get to the good part, so really focus here. Zzz. If you're getting this, relax. These muscles, relax them. They can do nothing for you. We are forsaking these. We're gonna focus here. Zzz, zzz. Of course, my voice is naturally quite low and deep. If your voice, do it at a comfortable pitch for you. So if your voice is way higher than mine, don't try to try to push it down. Let it be zzz, zzz, zzz. Whatever makes sense for your voice. But I need a zzz sound, not za za. No, I want zzz, all buzz. And make this muscle awaken, okay? Can you feel that? So in the A approach method, the method that I teach, the method that I've originated, we teach 2 types of support, reflexive support and active support. Reflexive support is what we just finished working on a bit. It's when we stimulate reflexive responses from the body to support the voice. It's like a knee jerk. You ever seen those old-timey doctors where they would hit the kid on the knee and their leg would kick? We're kind of stimulating these automatic knee-jerk responses, but from these muscles. The problem is when we sing songs, typically, if we want to get the most of our voices, especially if your voice is heavy like mine, but even if it's not, even if you just want your most power, we have to use what we call active support, when you deliberately engage one or several muscles. This is just one. We're going to talk about that a little later, but this is a good one. When you deliberately engage muscles to support the voice. So here's your challenge. You're going to notice, we're going to go from a Z to an ah, or a Z to an ah. You know what I'm saying. So I'm going to za. Seems easy, right? This is the challenge though. What you're probably going to get is this. Za. You're going to feel like someone pulled the wind from your sails. That is normal. I cannot emphasize that enough. The key is to consciously focus. We have to make these normally involuntary muscles voluntary. It is well within your human capabilities. Most people are just never tasked with having to do this. And like I tell people all the time, I'm so incredibly strong in muscles you can't see. Like you would know. And all my students are. As vocalists, we have to be aware of muscles and muscular mechanisms that the average person just doesn't have to know. So we weirdo singer folk have to know how to access these hidden features, these hidden powers of our body. So You're gonna zzz into an ah. It could be any pitch. Zzz, ah, zzz, ah. It does not matter. We just don't want this. Zzz, ah. It can't drop. You can literally stand in front of a mirror and practice this. You can see for yourself if you're doing it or not. You don't have to guess. Your body will let you know. Either you will open up and stay up, or you will power down and drop. But I promise you, if you can keep it engaged, you will notice a boost to the fullness and freedom of your voice. If you press here and you exercise it a lot, you may start to notice that you're sore. You may be like, oh, it's tender. That is fine. It should not hurt, but it should be, or it can be sore in like a, I've been working out kind of way, not in a dear God, please make it stop kind of way. So if you feel like, oh, this is hurting me, then stop. You're doing something crazy, or you need to see a doctor. It should feel like, okay, I got a little bit of a workout. And you might feel like, oh, I was doing it for a few minutes, and then now I lost the strength. That is also normal. We're utilizing muscular mechanisms that the average person never does, not deliberately, that the average person never does so deliberately. And we're trying to teach these muscles to carry the burden of our voice instead of these muscles, which many of us have overly trained to be overly responsive and overreactive, and they cause so many problems. So do this drill several times, but I want to give you the last part in how do we apply this to songs. But before we move on, I would like to mention that if you like this technique, there are many more in my Breathing Bootcamp for Singers program. Like as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there is so much hidden untapped power in so many of you in your bodies. And if you learn how to utilize the respiratory posture muscles, your support muscles, your breathing muscles, you'll be amazed at what you can do. I consider it almost a lost art because people know that you can do it, but there's so much ambiguity and there's so much, it's just so nebulous the way it's taught. But in my program, Breathing Bootcamp for Singers, we go into great detail on exactly what muscles are working, what it should feel like, how do you exercise it, how do you train it, how do you use it, very clearly. You can also ask questions and stuff. So I always hate having to advertise my stuff, but I also need to pay bills and stuff, as much as I love sharing things with you for free. But that's that. You can get it on aapproach.com. It should be flashed across the screen at some point. And let's move on to the last part, applying this to songs. Let's say you have, I don't need to be anything other than a prison guard son. I don't have to be anything other. I know it's not a super high, super powerful thing, but it's a super realistic kind of way of singing. And so if we're singing that, it's the beginning of a verse of a Gavin DeGraw song. And so let's say that you're like, you're trying to do that, because sometimes we're so worried about the high notes, we forget that there's a whole bunch of lead up to that. So we would do this. We call this substitution. It's when we replace lyrics with a helper sound that naturally stimulates the muscle with a little bit of conscious focus, and it will help to warm it up and also strengthen it. And of course, after you do that a few times, I don't need to be anything other than a prison. I don't have to be anyone other. So you can try to stimulate it deliberately. You can even touch it. This is something that's important. You might notice that sometimes that you'll see a big movement, and then other times you don't see any movement. You might be like, what the hell is that about? So I'm going to explain. If you have less breath in your body, you're going to see a big jump. But if you take a full breath first, it looks more like stability. So in other videos I have, especially on my IGTV, my Instagram TV, I talk about how important it is to have a stabilized rib cage, because that stabilizes our breath supply, gives us a more professional sound, makes the voice sound more stable and clean, and gives you more control. And sometimes you ask me, like, how do you keep the ribs open? Through hope? Like, how are we doing that? This is one of the ways. This is one of the hows, this muscle here. So let me shake it down. So when it's off, or when you're almost empty, it has this lifting effect, like I said, that cartoon, like a heart beating through the chest kind of look. But if we take a full breath, it just makes me look stable. And so you look quite calm, even though you are doing some work here. Actually, am I sweating? It is unseasonably warm here. This is ridiculous. It makes no sense. Anyway, let's move on. This technique does not make vocal weight disappear. It just gives us a healthy way of lifting that weight. And much like lifting like weights in a gym, you have to build up your strength to lift gradually. I know that like half of y'all are gonna want to go to the hardest song ever. I read the comments. I know it's gonna be something like, I'm gonna sing Demi Lovato's High E Flat in the such and such. I know that's where everybody wants to go to, whatever that is for them. But I want you to resist the urge to go to the extreme. Start off gently. This is a lesson on just expanding chest voice range. Notice I didn't say belting specifically because there are many components. This is just one. It's a very, very good one. And for some of you, for many of you, this may be the missing key for your full-on belting. But, you know, I'm really big on safety. A lot of my day is spent, this is a long shirt. A lot of my day is spent rehabbing the voices of professional singers who've injured them from doing too much before they were ready. In many cases, the talent is there and the musicality is there. They're just not properly conditioned. And so you want to build up the proper muscles that can help you to sustain these sounds. And this is one of them. Like I said a little earlier, I do have a program if you want to go to aapproach.com and you can learn more about how this muscle and some others can help you to gain more strength, more freedom, and more control. But play with this, be patient with yourself. It will work. In the beginning, it feels really arduous, but eventually you'll learn to sing with a sense of connection to this area all the time. And so how much of this you use is however much you need to pull yourself off of this. Sometimes you'll need less strength here, sometimes you'll need more. It depends on what you're singing, like I said before. But learn to tap into this, experiment, play around, but listen to your body. This should not hurt. If this hurts, you're doing something wrong, always. This should not hurt. Can it work a little bit? If you're doing rock vocals or something, you kind of have no choice, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But or certain extremes of sound. But for now, still, like nonetheless, I strongly encourage you to try to keep it light at first, just for the sake of safety. And as you get more strength, you'll know, because you'll feel like you can lift heavier sound with greater ease and with greater stamina. So that's it for now. Go to aapproach.com. Check out the Breathing Bootcamp for Singers program where I talk about this more in detail with special exercises, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So until next time, peace.